I'm not asking for pity. I just want to know, would you have believed me when everyone else said I was dramatic, unstable, paranoid? Would you have backed me up? Because no one did. Not until I showed them the footage. They nodded politely when I cried, smiled softly when I explained what I felt, but when it came down to it, they took his side. Friends, co-workers, even my own sister. Maybe you're overthinking it. He seems like a good guy. You can't keep making everything into a red flag. That's the thing about emotional abuse. It's invisible to everyone except the person living in it. And when the abuser is calm, well-spoken, articulate, you don't stand a chance. You look like the problem just for reacting. So that's what I became. The problem. The girl who was too much. The one who couldn't take a joke. Who needed professional help. Who was obsessed with being right. He said it all with a half smile and a sympathetic shrug. And they ate it up. She's spiraling. She's accusing me of things that aren't real. I'm genuinely worried for her. Meanwhile, I was the one sleeping 3 hours a night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. My name is Kara. I'm 29. And I was in love with a man who weaponized my sanity, turned my intuition into paranoia, my concern into instability, my pain into a punchline. Let's just call him Ethan. He was charming in that understated, clean-cut, must-be-a-good-guy kind of way. Well-dressed, smart, a bit guarded, but just enough to seem mysterious. The kind of man who doesn't post much, doesn't overshare, always keeps the upper hand in conversations. At first I thought he was mature, emotionally regulated. Turns out he was just emotionally manipulative. We dated for a year, and for most of it, I felt like I was holding on to smoke. He was present, but not consistent. Affectionate, but not vulnerable. And when I brought up how distant he was getting, here we go again. You always have to ruin the moment. You need to stop making things up in your head. Every concern I voiced became proof that something was wrong with me. He'd vanish for hours with vague explanations. Work stuff. Phone died. Last-minute plans with the guys. Always just believable enough to make me question whether I was being too sensitive. I'd find inconsistencies in his stories, receipts that didn't match locations, gaps in timelines, but he always had an answer. And when I pushed, he pushed back harder. This is why I don't open up. You're acting insane. You seriously need to talk to someone. The scary part, I started to believe him. I Googled therapists, asked friends if I'd been acting off, started apologizing before bringing anything up, just to soften the blow. I was terrified of being too much, because that's what he told everyone I was. He made sure I was the villain in his version of the story, told his friends I was clingy, told his family I was jealous, said I had control issues, that I made up cheating rumors to get attention. And every time I tried to defend myself, it just made me look more guilty, like I was unraveling under the pressure of my own lie. I remember standing in my own apartment, watching him scroll through his phone after a fight, completely calm, while I was shaking. He looked at me like I was pathetic, like he was dealing with a child throwing a tantrum. That's when I knew. He wasn't confused. He wasn't trying his best. He knew exactly what he was doing. He needed me to doubt myself, so I'd never see the truth. But I did. Eventually, I saw everything. Because while he was busy telling everyone I was unstable, irrational, mentally unwell, I was collecting evidence. And he had no idea. He told them I was crazy, but I had one thing he didn't expect: proof. It started with small things, little details that didn't quite match up. He'd tell me he had dinner with a client on Wednesday night, but I'd find a receipt in his coat pocket from Thursday for 2 drinks and an appetizer at a place he swore he never goes to. He said he got home at 11, but his phone's location history said 1:32 a.m. The first few times, I let it go. I didn't want to seem controlling, didn't want to be that girlfriend, so I swallowed the doubt and told myself, he's just forgetful. Because that's easier than asking why your boyfriend lies about the small stuff. But the lies didn't stop. They got sharper, more careless. He once told me he was at a friend's birthday all night. I found a tagged story on Instagram from a completely different bar across town. No friends in sight, just him and another woman at a corner table. When I showed it to him, calmly, quietly, not even angry, just asking, he flipped. "Why are you stalking me online?" That story could have been from any day. "I told you where I was. Why don't you ever trust me?" I remember standing there, holding my phone, watching him talk like I was the one caught doing something wrong. And then he turned up the heat. "You seriously need help. You get triggered by everything. I'm walking on eggshells every time I'm around you." Suddenly, he was the victim. And me? I was the unhinged girlfriend with trust issues. He said I was traumatized from my last relationship, that I needed therapy, that I was projecting all my fears onto him. He was so convincing, so calm, that it sounded reasonable. And when someone says those things to you enough times, you stop defending yourself. You start doubting your own brain. I started avoiding confrontation altogether. When I noticed a new scratch on his car that didn't match the timeline he gave, I said nothing. When he came home smelling like a perfume I didn't wear, I threw my laundry in early and pretended not to notice, because by then, it was easier to gaslight myself than be gaslit by him again. I told myself he was tired, that maybe I was too sensitive, that I had attachment issues. I even apologized once for asking a question about a late night. Apologized for feeling uncomfortable. Apologized for making him feel bad. That's how far I was gone. The emotional outbursts came next. Every time I brought up a concern, no matter how softly, it exploded into chaos. He'd yell, walk out, go silent for days, then come back acting like nothing happened. And when I pushed for a conversation, "I'm not doing this again. You're always looking for a reason to fight. This is why people can't be real with you." I started shrinking just to keep the peace, stopped asking questions, stopped expressing disappointment, stopped showing him when I was hurt. It was like living inside someone else's version of my personality, one where I was quiet, agreeable, easy to manipulate. I didn't recognize myself anymore. The worst part? People around me started pulling away too. Friends said I was too emotional, that I was always in some drama, that maybe I should just take a break from dating. My own sister said, "Are you sure you're not projecting? He seems fine to me. You're always so intense." And suddenly, I was alone with this storm in my chest, and no one to tell me it was real. That's what gaslighting does. It doesn't just make you question the lie, it makes you question your ability to see truth at all. I started writing things down in a notebook. Timestamps, dates, screenshots, not to prove him wrong, but to prove I wasn't going insane. Because every time I felt close to clarity, his voice came back. That calm, calculated voice that said, "You're overreacting. You need to get help. You're not okay." And eventually, I believed it. I remember lying in bed one night, staring at the ceiling, the whole room spinning from doubt. And I thought, maybe he's right. Maybe I am losing it. There's a moment when your gut screams so loud it drowns out your denial. Mine came on a Sunday. Ethan had told me he was out of town for the weekend, some networking trip with his company. He made a big deal about it. Said he might not have service, would be in and out of workshops, lots of late dinners with execs. All very official. I didn't question it. I smiled, wished him luck, told him to enjoy it. But on Sunday afternoon, I was driving back from my parents' house when I saw his car. Parked 2 blocks from my apartment. Same scratches on the bumper, same license plate, same little air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror. It was his car, and it wasn't in another city. It was right here. At first I froze, just stared. Like maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But it wasn't. He hadn't even bothered to hide it. I pulled over, heart racing, and stared at that car for a solid 5 minutes. Then I drove past. Slowly. And that's when I noticed something else. He was parked in front of a building I'd never seen him mention. Not his office, not a client's. Just a random apartment. I didn't stop, didn't storm in, didn't make a scene. I went home and waited. And when he finally came over the next night, like nothing had happened, I asked him casually, "Hey, how was the conference?" He didn't flinch. "Exhausting, long hours. I'm wiped." I nodded, waited, then said, Weird. I thought I saw your car near my place yesterday. That's when his expression shifted, just for a second, but he covered it quickly. Nope. Must have been someone else's. I was 3 hours away. I didn't say anything. He changed the subject, but something inside me cracked open. The next day, I cleaned the apartment, just trying to calm my nerves. That's when I found the second wine glass. Not one we usually use, not from our regular set. It was in the back of the sink, next to an unfamiliar lipstick-stained napkin, and an iPhone charger I didn't recognize. I stared at it all for a long time, not touching, just absorbing. When I brought it up to him, carefully, with as much softness as I could manage, he exploded. What? Now you're checking the trash? Digging through the sink like a lunatic? Jesus, Kara, do you hear yourself? This is not normal behavior. Are you stalking me now? Following me around like some obsessed ex? I wasn't yelling. I wasn't accusing. I was begging for a reasonable answer, but he didn't give me one. He gave me guilt, shame, fear. And then he did what he always did. He pulled me in, wrapped his arms around me while I cried, whispered into my ear like he cared. You're not okay, baby. You're not thinking clearly. You need help. This isn't healthy. And the worst part? I almost believed him again. Because gaslighting doesn't always look like rage. Sometimes it looks like comfort. Control dressed up as concern. That night, I lay in bed next to him, wide awake, staring at the ceiling while he slept peacefully. And I made a decision, not out of revenge, not to trap him, but to keep myself from losing my mind. I bought a camera the next morning. Small, discreet, motion sensitive. Syncs to my phone. I installed it in the living room, facing the hallway, just enough coverage to catch who came and went. I didn't tell anyone, not even my sister. Because this wasn't about proving him wrong anymore. It was about proving I wasn't crazy. If I was wrong, fine. I'd rather have proof of my paranoia than live with this gnawing feeling that I was being erased from my own life. But if I was right, then the game was over. And he had no idea the clock had already started counting down. I stopped reaching out to people. What was the point? Every time I tried to explain how I felt, it turned into another lecture about boundaries or self-care or how I was reading into things too much. Even Jess, my closest friend, had started using that tone. The soft, measured one people use when they think you're fragile and might snap. Kara, I think you need to focus on yourself for a bit. Maybe step away from the relationship for clarity. You're in too deep to see straight. That last one stung, because I really was in too deep. Too confused, too tired. Nights blurred together. I'd cry until my face hurt, then lie in bed wide-eyed, thoughts racing in circles, second-guessing what I saw, remembered, felt. I'd whisper to myself over and over, what if I really am losing it? What if this is all in my head? But then morning would come, and my phone would buzz. The camera, every time it detected motion, it pinged me. I'd scroll through the footage in silence, sitting cross-legged on my couch, hoodie pulled over my head like armor. And that's when the truth started trickling in. Not all at once. Not a smoking gun. Just strange moments. A shadow crossing the hallway when Ethan wasn't supposed to be there. The door unlocking at 2:04 a.m. when he claimed he was working late at the office. The back of someone's head, long hair, not mine, sitting on the couch for 40 minutes before vanishing. Unfamiliar shapes, quick blurs, things just out of frame. It was enough to raise my pulse. Enough to remind me, no, you didn't imagine it. I started writing everything down. Dates, timestamps, what he said versus what I saw, my own personal truth map, because no one else was keeping score. Every lie he told went into that notebook. I was out of town. Footage. Ethan walking into my apartment Friday night with groceries. I haven't been over all week. Footage. His keys in the door 2 days prior. I've never had anyone else here. Footage. Unidentified woman sitting on my couch while I was at work. I didn't confront him, didn't mention the camera, didn't even change my tone when he called me needy or said I was making things up again. I just nodded, smiled softly, and wrote it down. Because I wasn't gathering evidence for a fight. I was gathering evidence for survival. This was no longer about catching a cheater, it was about saving myself. And night after night, clip after clip, I began to feel it. The return of my reality, not his version, not the twisted, edited one he tried to make me believe. Mine. The one where I could see the truth, where my body wasn't lying, where my gut was finally being heard. By the end of the second week, I had over 30 video pings, 8 solid inconsistencies, 3 unmistakable intrusions, and a quiet voice inside me that was starting to wake up. One night, sitting on the floor in the dark, I whispered it out loud, just once. "I'm not crazy, I know what I saw." And this time, for the first time in months, I believed me. It happened on a Thursday night. I wasn't even expecting anything. I was at my sister's, getting ready for bed, going through the usual motions: face wash, silence, loneliness. Then my phone buzzed. Motion detected. 9:43 p.m. I glanced at the notification. Living room camera triggered. Probably nothing. Maybe wind through the slightly cracked window. Still, I tapped it. And the moment the footage loaded, my stomach dropped. It was him. Ethan. In my apartment. He hadn't told me he was coming over. In fact, he'd texted earlier saying he was staying at his brother's place tonight, long day at work. But there he was. In my kitchen. Not alone. I sat up straighter, barely breathing. There was a woman with him. Dark hair, tall, wearing a red hoodie I had never seen before. She was leaning against the counter like she'd done it 100 times. He opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of wine. They laughed, whispered, touched casually like they belonged there. And then he kissed her. Not a drunk mistake, not a slip, a long, deliberate, two-handed pull-you-in kind of kiss. In my kitchen, the same kitchen where he used to make me coffee, the same counter where we used to sit and talk about our day, the same room I cleaned that morning, just in case he dropped by. I stared at the footage, unmoving. The video kept going. They sat on the couch. He handed her a blanket. Then the clip ended. Motion stopped. 10:07 p.m. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my phone or scream or call anyone. I just sat there, still, frozen. Because when you've been lied to enough, the truth doesn't explode. It lands quiet, heavy, final. The next morning, he came over with his usual charm, smelling of soap. "Mornin'," he said, kissing my cheek. "Didn't sleep great at my brother's. You know how it is." I looked him dead in the eye. "Yeah, I bet it was crowded." He laughed, oblivious, opened the fridge, grabbed the juice, talked about nothing. I watched him like he was a stranger, like someone examining a wild animal up close, calculating how many times it's bitten before. He lied so easily, so smoothly, he didn't even hesitate. And that told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. This was routine. The kiss wasn't an affair. It was a lifestyle. He was living 2 lives and covering it with the same mouth he used to call me paranoid. I didn't say anything, didn't confront, didn't accuse. I just nodded, smiled, and as soon as he left, I went to my laptop, pulled up the cloud feed, clipped the footage, trimmed it to just the kiss, muted the audio, and transferred it to a USB drive, labeled it Thursday, slid it into a drawer, sat down on the floor, not with sadness, not with heartbreak, but with quiet, shaking rage. Because this time, I had him. Not through feelings, not through suspicion, not through gut instinct, through proof. And he had no idea what was coming next. I didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't ask why. When I confronted Ethan, I did it the one way he never expected. Calmly. I sat across from him in my apartment. Same couch she sat on. Same neutral tone I always used with him. "I know what you did," I said. He blinked, tilted his head. "What are you talking about?" "You were here Thursday night. With her. I saw it." He smirked, almost relieved. "Jesus, Kara. Again with this?" I didn't move. "You kissed her. In my kitchen." That's when he laughed. Full body, like it was some inside joke. "You're really losing it now, huh?" Wow. Do you hear yourself? You're stalking me with cameras now? You need help. This obsession with catching me, it's not healthy." He stood up, ran a hand through his hair like I was exhausting him. "No one's gonna believe you." And he was right, at least for a while, because within 24 hours, the spin started. He called my friends, texted my sister, played the same old hits. She's spiraling. She's accusing me of stuff that didn't happen. I think she might be having a breakdown. He sounded so calm, so concerned. That's what made him dangerous. But I didn't bite, didn't argue, didn't try to defend myself anymore. Instead, I sent out a message. "Can you all come over tonight? I need 5 minutes of your time, just 5. They came. Not all, but enough. People who'd heard his version. People who looked at me sideways for weeks. People who thought I was the liar. He showed up too. Of course he did. He had to control the room. "Kara," he said, half smiling, "what is this? An intervention?" I didn't answer. I plugged in the USB. The black screen of the TV now glared as I connected my laptop. Living room camera feed, date stamped, time stamped. They all watched in silence. The couch, the wine, the kiss, that deliberate, knowing, 2 hands on her face kind of kiss. The woman, the laughter, the ease. And Ethan, clear as day. No excuses left. Clear, unmistakable betrayal. When the footage ended, I turned off the screen. No yelling, no, "I told you so." Just silence. And in that silence, I saw it. His face, paling. His grip, tightening on his water glass. The flash of panic. Not regret, not guilt. Exposure. No one said a word, because there was nothing left to say. And for the first time since this began, I wasn't the crazy one in the room. They didn't all say sorry, but enough did. Jess texted first. "I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I feel sick." Then my cousin, who had once pulled me aside to tell me to go easy on him, called and cried for 10 minutes straight. Others stayed silent. No apology, no explanation. Just disappeared? Ashamed, probably. Or embarrassed they'd taken his side so easily. I didn't chase anyone. Not this time. Let them sit with it. I had my own cleanup to do. Ethan, of course, didn't go quietly. The next day I started hearing the new version of the story. She edited it. It's not what it looks like. She's using tech to ruin my life. He even posted a vague status about being betrayed by someone who faked evidence to turn people against him. But the damage was done. The people who wanted to believe him still did. The rest? They'd seen the tape. And I didn't care either way. I didn't post a single thing. Didn't defend. Didn't argue. I just blocked him. On everything. Deleted photos, burned the notebook, cleaned my apartment like I was performing an exorcism. The silence felt heavy at first, then holy. No more second guessing, no more anxious waiting, no more shrinking myself to fit inside someone else's fantasy. Ethan never reached out directly. Of course not. He didn't want closure. He wanted control. And I'd taken that away. For weeks after, I'd still wake up with that tight feeling in my chest, like I had to prepare for a fight. But it faded. Each morning, a little quieter. Each day, a little lighter. I replaced the camera with a bookshelf, bought new bed sheets, started journaling. Not about him, about me. One night, sitting on the same couch where I had once cried myself sick, I whispered it out loud. He tried to destroy my reality. Then I smiled. I rebuilt it without him in it. And that was the moment I knew I'd finally won. I don't replay the footage anymore. I don't need to. The tape wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about exposing him for sport or getting a round of applause. It was about reclaiming my sanity, because he tried to bury it under guilt, shame, and manipulation. And he almost succeeded. For months, I doubted my own voice. Let myself be painted as emotional, obsessive, unwell. Let him tell me who I was, how I felt, what was real. But the moment I hit play in that room, I wasn't asking for belief. I wasn't asking any more. Period. The truth stood on its own. Didn't need me to narrate it, didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't lie. I talk about it now, only when it matters. to friends who confide their doubts, to women being made to feel like their intuition is a problem. I tell them this: when someone calls you crazy for noticing patterns, for asking questions, for trusting your gut, what they're really doing is telling you to stop looking. Because gaslighting isn't just manipulation, it's erasure. It's rewriting your reality while smiling to your face. It's turning your fear into a punchline, your pain into performance art, and too many women are walking around afraid to trust their instincts. Because they've been conditioned to prioritize being agreeable over being right. But not anymore. Not for me. I don't need to see him punished. Don't need a breakdown or public apology. He's already living the worst consequence of all. He lost control. And me? I gained everything I thought I lost. Clarity, power, peace. My identity isn't the girl who caught her boyfriend cheating. It's not the one with the footage. I'm the woman who trusted myself even when no one else did. Who documented the truth while the world called me delusional. Who walked away, not when he broke me, but when I realized he never could. I live quietly now, without performance, without permission. And the next time someone tries to play mind games, I won't second-guess a damn thing. Because now I know what it sounds like when a lie tries to dress up as concern. Now I know that being called crazy is often just a man's way of saying, you're close to the truth and I'm scared. So to every woman out there who's been silenced, minimized, rewritten, here's my advice. If he calls you crazy, check the footage. He might be scared of what you'll prove.